All right. Thank you so much. And appreciate everybody that's listening live. And if you're checking this out on the back end, appreciate you as well. You guys are in for such a treat today. This is a panel of the greatest legal tech folks I know in the country, and you're going to get so much out of it. Your mind's going to get a little bit blown. I'm not over promising as far as you guys know so far. But we are going to have some fun. We're going to have some laughs. And most importantly, we're going to be talking legal tech and AI and getting to the bottom of this whole thing, because it's not a real thing, AI. It's all in our heads. No, it is a real thing. All right, so there we go. Just so you guys know, this is all partnership with the National Law Review, our good friends over there, Premier Legal News website. So check that out. All the material here is for informational purposes only. Obviously, consult with an attorney before you go and do some crazy stuff. Our faculty is amazing. We've got Matthew Kurbis, Subscription Attorney LLC, Maya Markovich, American Arbitration Association, Charlie Uniman, Legal Tech Startup Focus, and Dennis Kennedy, Michigan State University, and he'll share maybe a little later what his new gig is. And I'm Steve Fretzin, the moderator with Be That Lawyer. Okay. Just so you guys know, we're doing 4 of these sessions. This is the first of 4 for the quarter. I did 4 last year. I'm doing again 4 this year. Today we've got the future of legal tech. Next month, Legal Business Development Coaches Corner. I've got some of my favorite and fun coaches that are going to be talking to you mostly about how to grow a successful law practice. We've got content creation for effective thought leadership coming up in November. And in December, tips from America's top rainmakers. I've had the luxury and the privilege of interviewing hundreds of top rainmakers from around the world. You can find that in my book, Be That Lawyer, over my shoulder. 101 top rainmaker secrets to growing a successful law practice. And some of them will be on that last finale of the year for this 4-part series. Today we're doing the future of legal tech, and all of the webinars that are delivered by Financial Poise are in plain English and understandable to everybody. These are designed to be viewed independently, so you guys can check them out. And let's jump in and get started with all of those announcements being in the past. Here we go. And let's start off with Charlie on this one and work our way around. Other than AI, which we will get to soon enough, what's been the greatest advancement so far in legal tech?
Very good question. There's a lot more to legal tech than AI. One of the things I admire about legal tech is it's dealing with a problem that I faced when I practiced law for over 40 years in New York City. And it's still around to bother us. It's timekeeping. There are so many wonderful applications out there that some of which use AI to automate and make much simpler and much more accurate and much more timely the bugaboo of dealing with the billable hour as a practicing attorney and keeping track of your time and getting the time in. So while it's sort of nitty gritty, and it's not glamorous, that's one of the bigger advancements as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, fantastic. Kurbis?
Yeah, and soon it will be so advanced that billing time or tracking hours won't even be necessary anymore.
And I agree with that. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. So for me, I'd say as somebody who founded my law firm just before the advent of generative AI, like same year, it was March of 22 that I started my firm. I was already using a lot of incredible automation tools that existed, in particular document database and automation tools, or bring your own document automation tools. And even still today, even with generative AI, I'm leveraging these tools in addition to the generative AI. Now, we just call it AI now, but I mean generative, and just being able to take advantage and leverage these automation platforms are still extremely valuable. And so don't shy away from these document database platforms as a like retrieval augmented generation application to the AI systems that you're using. But then also just sometimes it's faster to just have an automation than to have to draft something in AI, review it, update it, and go back and forth with AI. So still valuable.
Yeah. Maya?
Yeah, just to pile into that, I think along the same lines, anything that helps with data mining is probably something that is, well, something was just unknown to most law firms 20 years ago. And I think now they're starting to realize the value of their data, trying to structure it and trying to kind of make sense of it in ways that will help the business and the practice.
Yeah. And Dennis?
I was thinking that I'm coming up on the 30th anniversary of my first column on legal tech. So I've seen a lot. And I think the biggest evolution has been the shift from technology as an overhead expense to technology as a competitive differentiator and all that involves. It also have started to see technology as just one piece of a bigger innovation framework that we need to think about, and that we're in the process of a move from innovation for efficiency's sake only to innovation for in terms of business models and how technology will fuel that.
Yeah, fantastic. Curvis, let's start you off on this next question. Other than that's a question I just asked. Holy mackerel. What's the single biggest mistake firms make when rolling out new technology? And I've been there for maybe not 30 years, but I've been there for the last 20 watching it happen. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, I have many takes, but I'll stick with my brand on this one, and that is, if it's saving us time, then that's reducing our revenue. Well, you may have a business model problem that needs to be solved in order for you to have the incentives to adopt the technology. So even before AI hit the scene, I was teaching at CLEs that there are more profitable ways to generate income for your firm instead of having an artificial cap on what you could earn in a day. And the way that you earn that is hire expensive billers who don't come cheap. And so there are other ways to scale a practice. And technology really helps with doing that. When you're not billing by the hour and when you're not paying by the hour, the way that you evaluate whether a tech solution is something you could afford to even do is you just look at your overall operating expenses and costs for the year, the cost being the tech, the rent, the salaries, and that kind of thing. And then it's easy to figure out whether or not this is a technology spend that we could have. And on the technology platform provider side, their mistake is trying to lock law firms into long-term contracts. Let them go month to month and give them a discount for an annual option, and that should be it. Anything longer than that, that's bad business.
Yeah. Dennis?
The biggest mistake I see is what I call technology first thinking instead of problem first thinking. So people say, like, what technology do I need and how do we implement it, when they should step a couple steps back and say, what problems, especially client problems, are we trying to solve better? And so this, again, I'm going to come back to this. This is a fundamental innovation strategy framework and not just a pure technology adoption framework.
Yeah. Charlie?
Yeah, I think that echoing Dennis's point, maybe expanding on it a bit, it's not just technology, it's an old saw, but I'll mention it anyway. It's as much a change management, people-driven problem that has to be solved than fitting the technology into your technology stack. And depending on the size of the law firm or legal department, it really involves laying the groundwork, not just top down, but getting enthusiasm so that you have a bottom-up appreciation for the new technology. Make it clear what it does that solves a problem that Dennis has pointed out has to be first and foremost. The business case has to be made. There has to be an effort to onboard people properly and impress upon the lawyers that it's a friendly thing that management of the firm may be trying to do, not just a matter of replacing lawyers or throwing another tool in their tool shed that they have to learn how to deal with. I'll leave it up to the vendors to figure out how to make it an easy lift to get people to use it, but treat people first as the most important aspect of technology adoption. After, as Dennis said, you figure out what problem we really want to solve.
Yeah, I was talking to a client this morning and he mentioned that his firm had a CRM. I asked him about it and he's like, and I'm like, so what is, he knew the name of it, but that's as far as it went. I'm like, so why aren't you on it? Like, why isn't your, and he had no explanation. It was just like, I don't know why I'm not on it. So there's problems there. Maya?
Yeah, that made me laugh. I mean, I'll also take as my usual change management lens to this as well as Charlie. I think the assumption really still is that if you roll it out, they will come and it will be adopted. and without really understanding, and to Dennis's point, the problem, the real problem, and also not automating bad processes. But firms still to this day, even at this point in the transformation of the industry, still think that, there won't be resistance, or, why would anyone not just, take this on and not think about like the impact to people's day to day. Um, People understanding that it's a process and you need a lot of skills on the people side to make adoption and continued use a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem I'm seeing is a lack of customization, integration, and training. And does anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll comment on that, Steve. But I have a different framework on it. I
Okay.
think those are all important, but I think it comes to user interface.
Mm.
So do we have the right user interfaces, and then are they inviting enough to get lawyers to actually use and experiment with the tools? And I think that a lot of times, I mean, there was this period of time back in the day where every vendor was saying like, oh, we've designed our software so the interface is like Microsoft Outlook, and I'm like, oh my god, like like don't ever do that again, and so there's a lot of things where you're like, you feel that you're fighting the program that you're using rather than it inviting you into use. So I wish I know the company Rocket Matter used to have user experience people who were part of the core team, and I wish more work was done on that side instead of just saying like lawyers can't really learn this. It's like it's too hard to use.
Yeah.
And just piggybacking off that, Fretzin, the questions you asked, I think are questions that law firm managing partners or managing committees are asking. But I went to the same place as Dennis, where I was thinking, if the technology provider needs, all this implementation and help with this, and it's just not a well-designed product. And so this comes down to like the technology provider, and I'm sure we've got tech, legal tech innovators and founders who are tuning into this. It behooves them to design a product that's easy to sign up for, easy to use, doesn't lock you into long-term contracts, and doesn't require a lot of explanation or integration on the front end.
Yeah.
And if there is some sort of a learning curve, I would suggest that the firms and legal departments talk to the potential vendor, and before signing on the dotted line, find out if they have the customer success people. That's a fancy term for the people that after the software has been adopted, make them available, not necessarily on site, but at all hours of the day, to help you at the firm get over that may inevitably, how good the UI and UX is, come up. And if the vendor doesn't indicate a strong commitment to after-sale customer success, I'd be wary.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, guys, here we go. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one barrier to legal tech adoption, what would it be? And we'll start off with Kerbis.
I'm gonna take this in two parts. For the law firms, I would wave a magic wand and get rid of the billable hour, because then they just start approaching everything differently. And for the for the tech firms, if you've been listening closely, I would wave a magic wand and get rid of contracts that are longer than month to month.
Wow. Okay, Maya.
Yeah, my first comment was going to be the billable hour. I mean, unbelievably, we're still having conversations about the productivity paradox, and that if there's an associate takes 2 hours to do something, and associate B takes 5 hours to do something. Associate A is going to be the one that the client prefers, and associate B is going to be the one that the partner prefers. And in that sense, the model is broken and it's not focused on client service. When I was at Nextlaw Labs and Denton's, they rolled out, as far as I know, is one of the first in the industry, uh, innovation hour for billable hour credit. And that did actually help a lot in terms of helping with experimentation, and kind of the latitude to make people feel like it wasn't something that they had to do kind of as a side hustle, or even educate themselves about the tools that were out there. But the bottom line is it's not going to really go anywhere until we have viable and obvious different business models for the
But
legal industry.
but Maya, what's the case study for a firm that's highly profitable on the billable hour model and how they would possibly be able to change over and stay just as profitable?
Well, that's a pretty big question, but I
Big
think
question.
that
Sorry.
I mean, I think honestly, I think it's already happening in the sense that
Okay.
it's client driven. I
Yeah.
mean, like clients are asking more and more of these questions,
Yeah.
and they're already, I mean, long ago, clients were already saying we will never pay for a summer associate's hours. We'll never
Yeah.
pay for a first year associate's hours. We won't pay for any sort of basically on the job training, which has actually impacted greatly, down the legal education scenario. But in the meantime, I think that they're already trying to find different models, and I think hopefully they're trying to find ways to, for example, people who do financings. At Denton's, we had a group that was leading the way in people who were doing financings. They would do like 10 or 12 a year, and the reason they were able to do that from the same client. And the reason they were able to do that was that the client knew that each one was at a fixed fee, and they were able to do those in a very efficient way because of the technology underpinnings that we put
Yeah.
into place.
I mean, as a small consumer of legal services, I'm a huge fan of the flat fee and of subscription and all that. But I'm thinking the mid market and the big firms that are making huge, bank on the big time billable hours. Dennis,
Yeah.
what's your take?
Well, I have to do that lawyer thing and give you two barriers that I would look at,
Wait,
or
you're supposed to say it
two
depends.
two solutions that I would look at, and for me, and they're equally important. So I think the main one is I think that lawyers have to talk to their clients about legal tech, and like what do the clients want, what do they expect, and it goes back to the jobs to be done. So, like, why are we not having that conversation on a regular basis? And then my most radical thing I'll probably say today is that when you introduce new technology, we have to start thinking in ways to reward people for using it,
Mm.
not and learning it, and not penalizing them for taking the time to learn it.
Wow, I love that. All right, Charlie.
Well, if I could do so in waving the magic wand and not jeopardize the law firm's revenue generation, I think I would force the retirement of the 20 oldest people who make decisions at the firm, and that would hasten legal tech adoption. I say that tongue in cheek. I think if I could wave a wand and be serious about the question, it would be to plant in each law firm and legal department a senior person with decision-making authority who is actually a champion of the adoption of legal tech, so that the people below and more junior, not quite as esteemed at the firm, know that they're not going to be penalized for taking the time. And in fact, they expect to be rewarded and be smiled upon favorably by a decision maker. If I could wave that one, I'd put a champion in every law firm for legal tech.
Wow, I
And
love that.
I just have to chime in on that because first of all, that's a great answer, Charlie. I love that answer. And where my mind goes, and Fretzin, you know a lot about this, is I think part of the reason is not even necessarily the billable hour as the part of the business model, but the business model relationship to origination credits. Because if you got those origination credits, you're not retiring. You're just going to sit back and you're going to stay there and you're going to take up that partner seat and that and that ownership in that law firm, and you're not going to do squat and maybe
Yeah,
still try to make decisions on things. So like,
yeah.
or get rid of or change origination credits at a certain level.
Well, I am seeing a transition of origination credits where someone would like stay underneath a partner to get the origination when they retire, if they ever retire or die or whatever. And now I think firms are absorbing those originations and saying, "Hey, you gotta go build something on your own, and you could still do the work, and we'll give you credit for that." Which I think is changing the model a little bit of what it used to be. Great stuff there, guys. As people may or may not know, I'm a business development coach for attorneys around the world. I'm always searching for ways to help them save time and energy during the day. For example, auto schedulers and things that are just going to make things that are mundane efforts, happen through automation. What are your favorite automation tools that you use and recommend? And Dennis, we'll start off with you on this one.
There's so many out there, and again, I like to think in terms of frameworks, and I think this is a point where Steve, you're probably going to let me mention AI, and I would say number one is put the $20 a month into one of the premium AI tools and just start experimenting with it. Um, I love this new AI tool called Clear Brief. So if you're a litigator, I think that would be a tremendous help. And then I'd also start to get out of the legal world, because there's a lot of tools out there in terms of automation that can really help you if you stop thinking it has to be legal specific. The other thing I would say, because this automation is another one of these tricky areas, and this is part billable hour and it's part other things, but people say, I don't know that I want to automate because I'm going to lose this time. And so what I tell my students and consulting clients is that look at the work, and this is true with AI as well, look at the work that you typically don't bill for, that you write off, or the clients always argue with you about paying for that. Though that is the richest area for automation, and it makes sense for you to experiment in that area, especially if you can turn the automation into doing things that the clients will like to pay you for.
Yeah, awesome. Charlie?
Yeah, I want to pick on what Dennis said. It doesn't have to be labeled legal tech to be a helpful way to automate some parts of the practice, particularly the grunt work that juniors may do, but that you may not bill for, and that juniors perhaps can learn from, but also hate doing. And by non-labeled legal tech tools, there are things like Zapier and Make and IFTTT, if this, then that. These are all tools that allow you to string together a number of apps, and often those apps are directed at mundane clerical work that nevertheless has to be done. It's a time suck. Look to those tools to help do what they're meant to do, and that is automate, and don't worry about what legal tech.
Yeah, fantastic. Maya?
Yeah, I mean, just to add another variety on there that I've seen a lot of success with, intake tools, especially for the small to mid-size firms. Um, a lot of information can be gathered in chatbots for lead qualification, as well as just the basic Q&A type of things that, well, and calendaring obviously also as part of intake, but things that just take a huge amount of time for overhead and don't necessarily always yield results, but also being able to collect the data on the back end of that, in addition to the intake automation, is great.
Yeah, awesome. Kerbis?
Tried and true solution is Calendly. I mean, there are a lot of scheduling apps out there, but like my intake, my even like well, my whole onboarding process is an integration of Calendly, Stripe, and Google Forms via my Google Workspace account, right? And so, like, do you need a legal practice management solution? Sure. I mean, that could help, but you know what it costs for me to like implement that system? Even just Stripe for payments. I mean, there are legal specific ones depending on your jurisdiction. I will give up $3 to get $97 for frictionless payments, especially on a recurring basis, like every single time. Like that streamlining feature is amazing. But just Calendly, getting everything inside your calendar and scheduled and rescheduled, and automations built into that are huge. So that's the tried and true. But then even very recently, the AI of it all, being a Google Workspace user, Gemini being in everything now is really great. So like I'm not a Microsoft user. I have Microsoft products because you kind of have to, especially when you're fractional GC like myself, and like the other attorney from the other part of the deal like sends you a Word doc, right? But I prefer to be in Google Docs and Sheets and Slides and all that. And Gemini has just gotten better and better. At first it was bad, then it was a parlor trick, and now it's actually starting to get really useful. The best though, the absolute best, is the future of internet usage, period. And that is these AI-powered agentic browsers. So I got access to Comet a few weeks ago, which is the Perplexity browser. And It is unbelievable. Like you basically tell this AI assistant what you want to do, create Google Forms, add things to your calendar, draft some things, put draft emails in your thing. But also it's Perplexity, so you could do all this research with it first. You're asking it questions, you're vibing, you're creating some stuff, and then you're like, great, now turn that into a survey in Google Forms for me. And it's not perfect, right? Like it's like, oh, it starts the form and then it stops, and like, hey, I saw you didn't finish it. Can you finish that? And then it finishes it, right? So it's like an underpaid staff person, but it costs $20 a month,
Yeah.
and like
Highly underpaid.
yeah, you just tell it what to do, and you go off and you do something else, and it does it.
Yeah.
And it is like this is the future. Like you
Yeah.
can't get better than that right now.
Yeah, Matthew, I'm so glad you went to Perplexity because, and I knew you would, but I think that is the mind blower for people is that you can say like, I'm doing this and it seems like it's really repetitive and there has to be a better way to do it. You say like, I'm using Windows, blah, blah, blah. I use this, give me some ways that I could automate this, and it will give you like a bunch of different ways. And then you say, well, I'll pick this. And then you say, I don't totally understand it. You're like, give me step by step, and it will do that. And then next thing you know, you have like, in the old days, we call it macro, but you'd have some shortcut that will do this thing that you're going like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And you didn't do any work other than to say like, how would I do this?
Yeah.
And with the browser agent though, Dennis, you could say, now go do that, and anything you could do in a browser, it will just go do. It's amazing.
Yeah. Really cool stuff there. I'll give a quick plug for Lawmatics because I've been on it for a long time, but I haven't seen a check in like a few years. So like every client I work with around the world is on ACH or credit card. I have marketing automations where I've got people into different groups. So one of the big complaints lawyers will have is, how do I keep in touch with my clients? How do I keep in touch with my network? I have everything in groups in a pipeline, so I can email 200 people where it all looks like it's an individual email and it's their name and it's not a newsletter, because that looks like a newsletter. And it's just all these different pieces that go into it that really again make my life so much easier. And again, I'm able to not have to do all the mundane bookkeeping and other things that I used to have to do. So
You just reminded me 10 seconds. We didn't mention it. Descript, Loom, Zoom recording, like these things. So you could just say something once, give instructions, and then just share that link so you don't have to repeat yourself a million times.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are moving into the AI part of our program today. It was unavoidable, so here we go. Let's dive in. What impact will the use of AI in legal practice have on the law firm billable hour model, and how should law firms deal with that impact? So we're back to, top off the conversation we had, 10 minutes ago. Charlie, you want to start us off on this? Then we'll go to Maya.
Yeah, I think you have to divide the world of law firms at least into two parts. The top 50 to 100 in the country, they're not going to pay attention to very much what we say, at least not now, because they drive the bus. They're handling things that are critical, bet the company litigations and deals, and they're going to sail ahead, much to my dismay and Matt's, and perhaps others on the panel. But for the rest of us who practice law at firms that didn't make it into the so-called AmLaw 50 or 100, the clients are becoming much more impressed, I think, by the use of AI as a time saver if they believe that it's being handled securely and properly. And I think if you can't compete with that one firm and next another firm that is going to alter its model, and that's where I think it's going to crack the billable hour. Several firms are going to change and make a big difference. I think you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. It's so misaligned, the billable hour. Well, I'm going over hoary old complaints about the billable hour. I think that at firm retreats, they ought to be making plans to figure out how to value bill, and that has not been cracked, but time has to be spent at the most senior levels of the firm to anticipate this problem. And I'd say the next 5 years, this is going to crack. I'll go out on a limb and say that.
Thank you, Maya.
I hope so.
I know from my lips to God.
I mean, you know, like I said before, it's client driven. In many situations, it's firm size dependent, as Charlie mentioned. I think it's going to be, you know, it's felt more in certain practice areas than others. Um, and but that being said, firms need to realize first and foremost that we're talking it's going beyond a competitive advantage and becoming table stakes. Um, Depending on the savviness of the client, of course, but also um, just to maintain market share. Um, I think firms are going to have to do more client development, client listening, and figure out how they can add holistic value because a lot of clients have problems. They don't necessarily have legal problems or they don't necessarily see it that way. But there are probably adjacent areas where they can look to their legal counsel to add value, and that will be something that will keep law firms relevant.
Oh, wow. Dennis?
So the medical profession has had this huge new competitor for several years now, and his name is Dr. Google. And so it's changed the way that medicine is practiced. I'm already hearing people talking about Chat GPT Lawyer. So the fact is that we can talk about all these different things, but on the ground, people are already using AI for basic legal guidance and sometimes much more sophisticated legal guidance. I heard somebody today who's not a lawyer, probably not using a lawyer at all, who's using AI to do their statements of work, which are traditionally legal documents. So that's so I think that clients, both in at the business level and at the personal level, and perhaps even more at the personal level, are going to be driving this, and it will have an impact on pricing models. Because if I can do this myself, same way with Google, like if Google and I put my medical symptoms in and it gives me the answer, why do I want to pay a doctor a whole bunch of money to tell me the same thing? So we're going to deal with that challenge. And I think it's where we're going to, and I'll go back to my radical notion of I think it's really important to talk to clients about what they want because they will tell you and they would like to tell you. So I actually, in a weird way, I can't believe I'm saying this almost, but I think that firms really need to be aggressive in how they address AI usage in their engagement letters from now on. And I think that means taking a look at their existing technology language and being much more forward-looking, more comprehensive, and think about where they want to go in the future with AI. And I think that needs to involve the clients as well.
And I almost feel like there's many that are just going to wait and bill and bill and bill and wait until other people do it and make mistakes and then decide to come in. But I feel like maybe the early bird will get the worm in some way if people start figuring out flat fee subscription, different models that will take the place of the billable hour and they get in early. We'll see what happens.
And if you,
Charlie?
no, I was just going to say, if you have been spending 25 hours, 50 hours in a particular matter, and the AI or some other technology will shrink that to 5 hours. Well, what are you going to do when that's going to happen? Are you going to pad your bill? No. Are you going to raise your rates to pick up that 45-hour differential? No. Unless you address the business model question, you're going to be in bad shape trying to derive revenue from the stuff you're doing.
Well, Curvis is already at 5,000 an hour, right, Curvis?
Well, speaking of that, I will say that this is the hardest question for me to answer succinctly, right? That's why I have, including special episodes, over 170 episodes of the Law Subscribe podcast to talk about sort of this exact topic, and hours and hours of CLE. But succinctly as I can, based on what everyone else said, I'll focus on the ethical reasons why. Right, because if you look at the model rules, model rule 1.5, comment 5 on fees, the very last sentence says, I mean, what lawyer listening to this doesn't like a good citation, right? Get the citation.
Hey, don't get everybody so excited, Curtis.
A lawyer should not exploit a fee arrangement based primarily on hourly charges by using wasteful procedures. Well, guess what? Not using AI in your practice means you're exploiting a fee arrangement based primarily on hourly charges by using wasteful procedures, right? And so like even then, like what do you do? Right? Do you multiply your billable rate by the loss? I mean, then you're going to be not billing $5,000 an hour. It's going to be something like $25,000 an hour or more to actually get the same result in terms of what you're billing. I don't think any client's going to be willing to pay for that. I don't think your ethical bar, whether it's the Bar Association or State Supreme Court, is going to be okay with that and think that that's a reasonable fee. So then the question is, what do? You engage in a little thought experiment. Since AI is making billable time untenable, and I would argue unethical, imagine your licensing body bans the billable hour, right? And you have 1 year before the ban goes into effect, right? Start strategizing now about what you should do. And lawyers are smart. They've just never taken a beat to think about their business model. And when they start thinking about it, they start coming up with some really clever solutions.
Wow. Super interesting. Dennis?
Well, and Matthew, I was going to say that the great thing about AI right now is if you're good at prompting, you can take your thought experiment and in 5 minutes have like an incredible starting point that you would have never had before.
Yeah.
All right, so we take all the wisdom of the world
Yeah.
and we have that solve this problem, and there we go. We don't have to take a year. We could do it in a minute, just like getting rid of. All right, you guys get the point.
No, then we bring the human back in the loop to do what the human does best of sifting through. But we've solved the blank page problem, and we got you off to a great start.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to what Maya, start us off on this one. What's a common misconception you hear from lawyers about AI that needs to be corrected?
Let's see. I think that
So many.
I mean,
There's so many.
there are
Where
so
do I
many.
start?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the, it's going to replace me. But beyond that, I think we could all talk about that one. I think another one I've heard quite a bit is how do I integrate it? How do I tell my clients about integrating it? How I'm integrating it, and I think a common misperception is actually that they need to kind of hide the ball. Or that or with their colleagues and peers that's something that they shouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
Where in fact we're in kind of a marketplace of ideas at this point, and the more ideas that we come up with, and the more that we're sharing what we're doing, the better. But I think there's still kind of this feeling that they shouldn't really talk about using it.
Yeah. Awesome. Dennis?
I have a good number of students at MSU who spent their summer internships becoming the actual AI experts at their firm. And there's a lot of firms that have done AI training. And even last spring, there were firms saying they couldn't wait for the students to come in to help them with AI things. I even have students, and one in particular who was an intern during school who was on his firm's AI strategy committee. So what I see is that the conception is, or the misconception, there are a number of ones, but I don't think people understand that AI augments legal judgment rather than replacing, and what augmentation means and how swiftly people can get up to speed. So I think we're moving toward this notion of how does AI help lawyers practice at the top of the license and to do the work that clients most value. So I think that's the main one. And I have like a small misconception that I would like to that I hear so often from lawyers that I would like to correct. And that is that if you're a lawyer, $20 a month for an AI service is not a prohibitive amount of money.
No, we'll spend, $300 a month on streaming services to watch crap. So there's that. I can't imagine not paying the $20. I use AI every single day, ChatGPT, and it's become a huge part of my business. The book behind me was written in part through editing and automating the content of my podcast to pull out the gems from 101 Top Rainmakers and creating a book in 90 days, not a year. So I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a no-brainer investment. Charlie?
Does
It's
AI,
Purvis.
AI's use pose risks? Yes, of course. It's a powerful tool, and like fire, it has to be used carefully, and you have to be able to know and describe the risks so you can address them. But I think one misconception is that AI enemy, enemy of a lawyer. It's either going to replace people or it's going to persist in making mistakes that can't be caught. I look at AI and tools of that sort as a friend. Along Dennis's lines of Dennis's thinking at the outset, it could be and soon will be a competitive differentiator. If your competitive firms are using tools that where AI helps people analyze judges in a particular jurisdiction, and you're not using it, you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. Likewise, it's not only going to be a competitive friend, it's going to be a bulwark someday against malpractice claims because mistakes can be caught by AI, not just made by AI. And things can be omitted if humans are in the loop too much. Humans get tired and they get bored and they get sick, and AIs don't. So look at it as a friend competitively, and look at it as a friend when it comes to defending yourself from claims you didn't handle the matter well, but do handle it with care.
Awesome. Curvis?
Yeah, so this is a prescient question for me because next week I'll be giving 2 guest lectures to DePaul, which is where I went to law school in Chicago, to the whole 1L. It'll amount to basically the whole 1L class, and this is the exact topic they want to cover, which is the main misconception that I see, that we've all see, is, well, you can't use AI because it's not reliable. Like, it doesn't give good answers. It makes stuff up. And so my response to at least the professor was that the answer is you should absolutely use AI. And it's probably malpractice to not use it, but it's also malpractice to use it in the wrong way. And this is where the misconception comes in, right? So, like what your book is a great example, Fretzin. So you didn't just go into ChatGPT and say, write me this book. You took transcripts of these podcast interviews and you refined them and recontextualized them. You gave it context, significant context. So lawyers want this all-in-one solution for any technology, right? But especially for AI, right? That's where it's highlighted because they're just using ChatGPT like it's some super tool that can do everything. It's a super generalist, not a specialist. And the smartest generalist on the planet is not going to do that great of a job at a specialized task. And especially when they don't have access to resources, like to do the specialized task.
Yeah.
And so I only use AI tools, period. Not just in my legal practice, but in my life. If it doesn't rely on a source to give me an answer. Now, I'm not in a creative space. If I was in a creative space, I would. But I'm not even in my personal life. Even inside of Canva, I like to give it examples first and then use AI to iterate on that, right? Still, like I like there being a source, or I'm giving it a source, or it's attached to a source. We call it retrieval augmented generation in the AI space. And to highlight it, I'm just going to give a quick example. And that is, and sorry, Dennis, you've heard this one before, but let's say and it's about using the right tool for the right situation instead of the wrong tool. So let's say you hire a contractor to come over to your home to do some work, and all they bring are manual tools, screwdriver, saw, and they're charging you by the hour. Like, you're not going to feel good about that. And power tools exist, right? The consumer of legal services today they all know AI exists, right? So they're like, no, I'm not paying you by the hour unless you're using power tools. And so they're like, okay. So they bring power tools, and then they put out a 2x4, and they take a power drill, and they start drilling sequential holes right next to each other to saw the 2x4 in half, right? Versus just getting out like a circ saw or a power saw and just saw that 2x4 in half in less than a second. Now it's taking them minutes to get through that, and then they're gonna have to smack it down, and it's gonna have a rough edge, and it might even take more time than just using a handsaw. That's what happens when the lawyer uses an AI tool that's not made for legal research, like ChatGPT, to do legal research. You're going to have rough edges. You're not going to do it any faster. You're going to have to check every citation. You got to use the right tool for the right purpose, and ChatGPT cannot and should not be used for everything. I don't use it for anything.
Yeah. Great. Final thought on this, and we'll move on. We're good? All right, here we go. Junior lawyers often learning the nuts and bolts of practicing law by doing some low-level work and research. How will law firms have to adjust junior lawyer training in the face of AI tech taking over a significant amount of this basic level work that we're finding that that may happen. Charlie?
Well, I faced this as a junior lawyer. Of course, we were back in the days of the quilt pen at that time, but nonetheless, other than learning how to write in cursive rather well, I'm not sure the quilt pen really taught me very much, and I'm not sure that some of the grunt work really teaches young lawyers how to practice law very well. It is going to rob the junior lawyer of some of the work that that person might otherwise have done. And to fill that gap and to do so in an efficient way, I think there are tools out there for teaching young lawyers how to practice. There are companies that offer these videos and even use AI to enable people to practice negotiation skills. And let's face it, at least when I was practicing, law firms were among the worst explicit teachers in the world. It was all by osmosis. It was all by rubbing elbows with rather good, perhaps excellent senior lawyers. But that's not really the only and best way to learn. And law firms, I think, are going to be forced in the face of this undercutting of the grunt work and less than grunt work to devote a lot of the senior people's time to figuring out train lawyers with modern lawyer training tools. And they're out there, videos, negotiation, teaching. Spend some time, law firms, thinking about this, and don't just expect it to happen by the old osmotic way. Use some new tooling out there, and your associates, younger lawyers will appreciate it, and you'll have better lawyers practicing closer to the top of their licenses, and you'll be able to charge more for their valuable work.
Awesome. Dennis?
I was thinking here for a second whether I'm allowed to swear or not, but I'm going to I'm going to use a bad word here so people can cover their ears. But so this is probably the thing I hear most about these days, that AI is going to take away the opportunity for junior lawyers. How will they ever learn things from the senior lawyers? And so my first thought is, like, what senior lawyers have you been working with over the years? I mean, there's a reason that firms have no asshole rules, right? Like, you're learning from partners who are too busy, who have alcohol and other issues, who are prejudiced toward people, who play favorites, who do all these things. Like, what is it that we're actually learning? And then I also think about, some of the junior lawyers I knew at a firm where they were probably clients were paying them $200 an hour at the time. And what they were doing was going through paper documents in boxes, and they had this bait stamper for people who've ever done this. It would just like press down and make this ka-chunk noise. And they were getting $200, being paid $200. Well, they weren't being paid. The firm was being paid $200 for that. It was mind numbing. And I don't know how that made them a better lawyer. So I kind of, question this premise, because I think we're moving into a completely different lawyer skill set, as we've done from time to time. And as Charlie pointed out. So I would say right now, what I see in law school is that legal education is starting the most significant transformation since the introduction of legal research bases. And it involves a completely different set of skills. And, you have to think about it in different ways. And I remember with Lexis and Westlaw, it was like, how are junior lawyers ever going to learn unless they go to the library and experience that the book is not there, and they have to figure out what to do and waste all this time. So I think we need to think through what is actually happening, what that means, and then what the skills are that we really want people to have in this new era, and more importantly, what clients want to have. And I'm going to touch on something political for a second, since I used a bad word, which is that we now have a policy in this country on AI that says we are going to win the AI war, and it's pedal to the metal. So how are we developing lawyers who are going to represent the companies in that framework if we're saying, oh, we're not sure this is good lawyer training, we're not sure, we need to study this more, we need to do all of that. So there's that gap that's really starting to happen, and that's one of the things that concerns me most about legal education these days.
Yeah. Well, guys, we have about 10 minutes to go. I want to do a speed round. So let's keep our answers tight and let's see if we can get through a few more slides because I just know there's a lot to cover here.
Then really quick, they can
yep.
start their own law firms. That's my
There we
answer to
go.
the last question.
Oh, good one.
And they are.
All right. So, okay. So then where do you see the line between leveraging AI and tech for efficiency and overstepping into unacceptable risk? Because there's that balance then, right? Curbis?
You got to use the tools. Just make sure you're using them for the reason that they were designed, for that particular purpose. Stop looking for an all-in-one solution and it's okay to have a tool belt full of tools that help you do different jobs.
Was that like measure twice and cut once? Is that sort of the idea here?
Very good. Yeah, keep the analogies going. Yeah. I mean, you have to use them, and the unacceptable risk is to not use them, but you have to use them wisely.
Right. Charlie?
Well, I think you understand AI and adjacent tech as a really good robotic intern without a lot of judgment and without knowing much of what it or he or she is doing. And just as you wouldn't turn an important step in an important matter over to a very lawyer without review, likewise, with this indefatigable robotic intern working for you, you wouldn't turn that matter over to that without review, serious review. But not to use that robotic intern is, as Matt put it, as much of a risk for a lot of reasons, reputationally, business-wise, competitively, as it would be just to let it run amok.
Yeah. Dennis?
So there's this notion of right sizing that comes to mind. And so so the unacceptable risk, it comes from when you're out there where you're doing stuff you don't understand. And so this is why I insist to people, and I do get pushback on this, by the way, where I say, look at the things that you typically write off, you don't bill for, or that clients argue with you all the time. Now, to be fair, I've said this to a lot of lawyers, and they say, "Oh, I never write off anything. I never don't bill for anything." And I laugh at that, but you got to change that mindset. And I think that's the place with AI and with tech is you look at stuff where you're not getting paid for anyway. So how do you make that faster, more efficient, more client pleasing in what you do?
Yeah. Great. We got one or two more questions real quick. How should lawyers talk to clients about the risks of using AI in their matters? Anybody want to jump on that?
I would say, I'll start off just by saying that I think that lawyers have to have confidence in the fact that that the firm or whoever's in charge and they have talking points around having asked the right questions in diligence when selecting which tool to use, and that they're fit for purpose, things about data security, supply chain, all that kind of thing, because those are the things that savvy clients are going to be looking for reassurance on.
Yeah. Right on.
I have actual clients who are starting AI companies, and what we've landed on is they are renting private server space on like AWS or Azure or Google's cloud provider and actually running models locally on that server space because they're going to be processing highly sensitive information. And so like if you really want to get, protective with it, that's a route you could take.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Otherwise, we'll hit one. We got one more. Yep.
I was just going to say one more thing is that I think that if clients have the conversation first, but if clients are expressing concerns about your AI usage, they're sort of questioning your professional judgment, or maybe they're operating on organizational policies that you actually need to understand a lot better, and you need to address those directly and professionally, and position yourself as the expert who can guide clients through their own AI decisions. And that's an increasingly valuable advisory role that lawyers need to step into.
Yeah.
And Matthew just gave some examples of that.
All right, let's hit one more question, then we'll wrap up. All right, well, this is interesting. Which practice areas are leading adoption of AI, legal tech, and which ones are lagging behind? So, like, where do you see this coming in hard and fast now, and then which ones do you think are going to hang behind? Charlie?
Yeah, I've spoken to a number of legal tech companies, startups, and more mature companies working in the intellectual property area, particularly patent work. Now, I was never a patent lawyer; it's a very specialized area, but there are immense strides being made to use AI to increase the efficiency and the coverage and the breadth with which these firms can represent their clients in the patent world. Likewise, immigration firms, to my knowledge, are doing land office business for reasons we don't have to go into deeply right now, but are also taking advantage of AI and being able to provide better representation and more representation, and do so for groups of people who might otherwise not have been able to afford the representation that they can get now through AI use.
Yeah.
So all firms across the board who have not, or who are not billing by the hour, but then in particular, personal injury firms and in-house teams are like in-house in particular is really driving adoption of AI. So the outside counsel should be shaking in their boots.
Because they're going to figure stuff out internally and just cut all the hours.
That, but also they're going to actually say legitimately, why did you bill us for these many hours? We know for a fact that AI tools could have done it faster. What AI are you using?
Okay, so back to your point earlier that this could be considered unethical.
Right. Or I would say the other thing from being an in-house counsel is, why am I paying you like $1 zillion for 50 state reviews that you turn around to tell somebody else that I might be able to generate with AI? So that's one thing. Another thing is to say, what if I have this big issue? Do I really want to hire somebody at $1,500 an hour to research this, if AI will kind of give me the initial screen on it, and then I can go to the firm with some very specific questions I have, and I become hugely more efficient? So that's important. I think I think the immigration lawyers are doing really significant work, and they're the ones to look at. There's some interesting things that are predictive and regulatory that are worth paying attention to. The access to justice space in general, there's a lot of exciting things happening. And if I were a younger person and a younger lawyer, I just think the whole area of elder law is ripe for the use of AI.
My final word.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of which ones are lagging behind, I think it's the ones where the really big moves are being made in terms of, I mean, to the point that, even if there are astronomical billable hours, it really is just a blip on the radar of the overall attorney fees, things like antitrust and big mergers and acquisitions. I think I know I've spoken to lawyers in that, and they're just like, nobody even asks that question.
Yeah. Hey guys, as we wrap up, I just want to mention that all of our panelists are amazing, and all of their bios are in the deck that you have, so you can always go back and check them out, and feel free to contact them if you have any questions or want to talk with them all individually. But I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody that was here with us and that's watching this after the fact. And this was just been an incredible journey to kind of get all these expert opinions. I can say that, you can't say that, about what's going on with AI and legal tech in the world right now and the future of legal tech. And I think it looks generally very bright, but I think there's going to be some people that, to Kerbis's point, shaking in their boots. They got to get organized with how they're gonna make these changes. So thank you all for being here.
Hey, Steve, will you let Matthew plug our legal AI webcast?
Yeah. So actually, because Steve Fretzin got us started on doing a legal tech roundtable, Dennis and I took that and ran with it. We now call it Legal AI Live. It's every month on LinkedIn, usually the second Friday, but there's a podcast too, so you could search for it in the podcast app that you use. But if you
All
wanna
I
join
ask
us
is a
live-
very high royalty for that, guys. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
Once
All
we
right.
find some subscribers, who paying subscribers, we'll think about it.
All right, now we're talking.